Hi guys, John here from Optics Warehouse. So today we're going to be carrying on with our recap series. This one's going to be going over the field target scopes and our top 4, with a few more chucked in there just as references. So we're going to start with the T50. So this is the entry level model here of what you would class as a field target scope. You've got the essential 10 to 50 mag, or at least a high magnification range of that, which is really very much needed for your parallaxing on the longer targets. And obviously for getting that clear, crisp and precise reading every time. Obviously it is Chinese made, so the glass quality is going to suffer compared to the other models we've got here. But for say a sub 500 quid to get the full setup you need to get going, for me personally there is no better scope than the Falcon T50 if you're buying new. So with this, as I said, you've got 10-250 magnification, and paired with that MOA 200 reticle, gives you quite a good starting place as a field target, bench rest or long range scope. Obviously the one thing the T50 does suffer with is it's built on a 30mm tube, which is fine, but it's got very limited internal adjustment. Obviously that's once again comes into the budget. So with this you may need to put adjustable mounts on there, or as I say, if you're going to use it for long range, an adjustable rail with MOA built in is definitely necessary, and probably some adjustable mounts to go with it on top of that. But as I say, we're talking about the field target here, so we'll go a little bit more in depth for this part. 1/8 click adjustments on the turret with some nice, really clear, easy to see writing on there. So the 1/8 adjustments just give you that nice fine click value for making them small adjustments going out, especially when you're coming right close in to your 10 yards, and each yard increment out from that. It actually makes a huge difference with, between clicks there. And also with your 50 to 55 and your yards in between, you do struggle to get the adjustments you need on something like a 1/4 MOA click. They're not quite fine enough in my opinion. So with this, as I say, it comes with a full setup. You've got your flip up covers front and rear. So a nice little touch there, and it just saves you having to spend out more, especially on that starting setup. So that's a quick rundown of the T50. So I'll pop that one back. And now we're going to move on to the next scope up, in my opinion here, which is the Nikko Sterling Diamond. So this is the classic scope you're going to see on most field target guns, because it's been around for a while in many guises, from the Mark 1 right the way up to the Mark 3 illuminated that we have here. So with these, personally, out of the 2 latest models being the Mark 3 and the Mark 4 being the illuminated version as people sometimes call it, I would personally say for field target the illumination one is fine, but if you're going to use it for bench rest you'd be better off sticking with their standard mil dot or NATO reticle. With regards to the tube size on this one as compared to the T50 we did previously, it's got 30mm tube on there, but because it's got a higher build quality and Japanese made, the tolerances are much tighter, the materials are better, so it gives you a lot more MOA travel inside. So with this one you shouldn't need any adjustable mounts to get you zeroed, and for your air rifle or rimfire bench rest ranges. Should have plenty of adjustment in there. So these do come with a side wheel. It's not particularly big, so to be honest you would be better off just getting rid of that one and putting an aftermarket one on there, or using something like the Mick shark fin that sits on top of the standard wheel that it comes with. So once again, 60mm objective, the same as the T50, and 10 to 50 magnification, the same as the T50. What I said about the Japanese glass, that's where this then comes into its own compared to the cheaper range scopes, and that allows you to use that full 50 mag even on darker days and be able to really clearly and precisely tell that range between your 50, 54, 53, 52, 51 and 50 yards. And that is where a lot of points are gained and lost on the field target competitions, because of how fast the pellet drops at that range. You need to be really precise on what yardage that target is. And spending the extra money on that Japanese glass really does help you do that. So unlike the T50, this has got capped turrets. So underneath these, if I just take the elevation one off to start with, as you can see, that is a dialable turret underneath. It is quite easy to knock, so I would advise leaving your windage on at all times. You don't ever have to adjust your windage to dial. You'd always hold off for that, because you're dialing your elevation. You've got that horizontal line in there for aiming off. The only thing I don't like about the Nikko really is the fact that it's gold on green, and the contrast just isn't really there in dark conditions. For me personally, I don't find too much of an issue with it, but the amount of reports I get from customers and from fellow shooters that can't see the numbers clearly on there, it is solvable by an aftermarket turret, but it's just something that I think could have been better designed to start with. But if that's the only thing I can pick fault with the Nikko Sterling Diamond scopes, it obviously isn't doing a bad job at what it needs to do. So pop that one to one side, and then we're going to move on to the latest field target scope that's come out, or in this price range, which is the X50. So this is the Japanese variant of the T50. Obviously don't get it too confused that it's just Japanese glass in the same body, because it's not. This has got more similarities between the Nikko and the Sightron S3 than it will to the T50. So once again, you've got a one-piece 30mm tube. It's got 10 to 50 magnification and that all-important Japanese glass. With that, I personally think it's got slightly higher grade Japanese glass than the Nikko, but obviously that is once again a personal opinion on it, and it may just suit my eyes a little bit better. There's plenty of people out there that say the Nikko is better or the Sightron, and for me, to be honest, none of them's wrong. It's just whatever suits you. So it does come with flip-ups. They're not the nicest. I mean, they look like they're probably going to break after a while. They are fairly cheap, but it gets you going until you get something that would be a little bit more suitable to cover your glass on there and protect it. Side focus on here. Obviously, if you go for one of these and for bench rest and you want to upgrade at a later date, the beauty of this is it's got the same side wheel size boss as the Sightron S3. So there are side wheels readily available already. And if not, you can go for the Harris side wheel that Falcon also provides, which for me is one of the better ones to go for in the first place. So you can get this in three different forms. You've got your field target without any side wheel, then you've got your field target with the side wheel, and then you've got your long range variant. The only real differences between them, obviously apart from one comes with a side wheel and one doesn't, is the long range version will only parallax down to 10 meters, whereas the field target one comes down to 9 meters, meaning that your 10-yard targets will always be crystal clear. Once again, 1/8 MOA click values, much nicer black on white writing again, so it is clearly visible, but both targets are open target turrets, so you just got to bear in mind of keeping an eye to make sure you haven't knocked it when you're putting it in and out of the bag. So that's a quick sum up of the X50. And then we're going to move on finally to my favourite, as I keep saying in previous videos, which is the Delta Striker. Now this is the scope that I use, although this is the more modern variant. As you can see, the writing is much bigger now on these, on the turrets. It's a lot easier to see, and I think they've got the size absolutely bang on there, especially with having the increments in between with your 8.5, 7.5 MOA dialing round. So once again, it's 1/8 MOA adjustment, or 0.125 MOA. With that, once again, real nice fine click values. You're focusing on here on the side focus. The Delta side wheel that you can get as an aftermarket, if I'm honest, I wouldn't bother with. I'd go for an aftermarket one, something like AJP or once again John Harris, and they bolt up really nicely onto there, and it just stops you getting anything in the way of your illumination, so you can turn that and change the battery of ease. And also the way it clamps up, because there's such a fine tolerance there, if you have a side wheel that isn't quite bang on and you do them up, you can get a little bit of binding on there and you'll just hear it scrape slightly. Whereas if you get one that's hand built and really finely finished by either AJP or John Harris, you won't get that binding on there. So a nice feature on the Striker as well is you've got the magnification lever here. It's got a separate screw-in one, so it just means it's nice and easy to change the mag as and when you're on the field and you need to. So it's 5 to 50 magnification on this one. To be honest, I've never really used the bottom end of the mag on there. It's not really needed, but it's there so it can be used as a multi-platform scope. Obviously, we're not interested in that in field target. The 5 mag is going to be nigh on useless for us. So with this as well, as you can see from the other scopes, it's got that larger tube on there. It is a 34mm tube, which gives it an impressive 100 MOA of internal adjustment. So if you're going to be using it for your F-class or long-range shooting, or as say bench rest, you're not going to need much MOA on the rail or mounts to get out to your extreme distances. But for your average use, you're never going to have to put any MOA on the mounts or rail. You should have it all internally there. Glass quality on this, once again Japanese, but it's got a higher grade again than the other 3 scopes we've seen here. So for me personally, it gives you that finer detail again. The parallax isn't quite as snappy as what you're going to find in the X50 Falcon or the Nikko Sterling Diamond, but what you do find in that, where you get the real fine detail on the target. So if you've got like a spider's web or some paint flaking, it's the real fine detail that really pops when you do get the parallax right. And that's why on this, you literally can tell yard from yard what range that target is, and repeatably. but you do have to concentrate on that fine detail. So that's a quick roundup of the ones we've got in front. Obviously there is a few more to mention. Got things like the new March High Master that's come out. Obviously that's still fairly new in the water, but it's been tested by quite a few top shots now. I know Mark Bassett, or Bertie as a lot of you know him, he's got one on his rifle, and so far he's really impressed with it. Optical quality, absolutely beautiful, but obviously you are paying a premium for that. That is coming in at nearly twice what the Striker does. You're not going to get twice as good a scope, but then saying that with the price coming up from these models here as well, the Nikko theoretically isn't twice as good as the Falcon T50. Once again, as you go through, the X50 isn't half as good as the Delta. Personally, if I didn't have a Delta myself and I'd use the Falcon, I'd be quite happy to have one of the Falcons on my rifle and use that day in, day out for it. They are wonderful scopes, and obviously if you can't quite bring yourself up to spending that £1,600 on the Delta, you can't go wrong with it. So that's a quick roundup of and recap of the field target scopes, and as I say, just chucking that High Master in there because it is definitely a notable scope. If there is any more that we've missed, or you want us to go into detail on some more models, please feel free to drop us an email or give us a call, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks for watching.